It's been bred in them to give it their best, to carry the colours and do nothing less than go for the greatness.
When you've got the tradition, the pride, and the spirit, it shows in everything you do, like it shows in every beer we brew. Carlton, one of the world's great brewers.
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team on Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark Blues.
This is where the long tradition of the Carlton Football Club really began, in the wilds of Royal Park in 1864, just 6 years after the first game of Australian football had been played in another paddock in Richmond, near where the MCG now stands. Carlton played here for 15 years. Ben James was secretary and treasurer. This is his first annual report. The ground here wasn't fenced and spectators used to wander onto the field from time to time. No gate money was collected. Opposition teams used to hate playing here. It was like taking a trip into the bush. This blurry picture is all that remains of Carlton from those days. It was taken in 1868 at Royal Park. In 1877, Carlton won the first of 2 VFA flags, playing at the Madeline Street ground. It was where Newman College at Melbourne University now stands. After another year back in the wilds of Royal Park, Carlton was granted a tenuous occupancy here at Princes Park South. Temporary fencing was erected to mark the arena. Such training as there was had always taken place over there at Melbourne University, at what was known as the Triangle, home of the Carlton Cricket Club, the famous 3 Cs. Carlton had been the premier team of the colony from 1871 to 1877, with the exceptions of coming second twice in 1872 and 76, despite the disruptions of shifting home grounds. The 1871 team, led by Jack Donovan, was the first to abandon the orange caps, which had been part of the uniform until that year. Games against Melbourne were legendary. Great players of the day included the mighty George Coulthard, 3 times named champion of the colony. Coulthard was the leading player in the champion team of 1877, which lost only 1 game in the VFA, and was the first side to play in Sydney against the Waratah Club. We won easily playing Victorian rules and lost playing rugby. Carlton and Coulthard even played the first game under lights in 1879 at the MCG. Night football didn't take off then, mainly because the players couldn't see the ball and the posts holding the lights up were a bit of an obstruction. Here is the Carlton team of 1884, with Coulthard its centrepiece, in the year he died. We won our second VFA Premiership in 1887, Queen Victoria's Jubilee year, again losing only 1 match. But despite being runners-up in 1889, 90 and 91, the Blues fell upon hard times shortly afterwards. By the mid-1890s, Carlton had to play its home games on other teams' grounds and could barely win a match. In fact, it was only Carlton's long tradition that enabled it to join the breakaway Victorian Football League at the end of 1896, ready for the first round in 1897. Here's our last VFA team in 1896 at the MCG, with the orange shoulder patches and navy blue lace-up Guernseys. Unfortunately, we won only 2 games this year. The other factor in being invited to join the VFL was the promise that Carlton would soon have its own inner suburban ground. And so it did here at Princes Park. The pavilion from the Triangle was moved here and the ground was opened with a game against Collingwood in June of 1897. By the time the grandstand behind me was built in 1909 at a cost of £2,000, the Blues had won 3 flags in a row. With the exception of 2 seasons, Carlton was in the finals for the next 21 years, beginning with this team in 1904, seen here losing to Fitzroy in the grand final of that year. Perhaps the biggest reason for the improvement of Carlton in the VFL was the appointment of Jack Worrell, a former Fitzroy footballer, but a former great Carlton and Australian cricketer, as football's first coach. Worrell coached 3 premiership sides in a row. In 1906, we defeated Fitzroy by the huge margin, in those days, of 49 points, 15-4 to 6-9. The team was regarded as the finest seen until then in Victorian football, with Mick Grace, George Topping, Rod McGregor, Bongo Lang and Pompey Elliott, perhaps the best of a great bunch. In 1907, we just defeated South Melbourne by 5 points, 6-14 to 6-9, with Mally Johnson supreme in the ruck. 1908 was the Jubilee year of Australian football, and Carlton celebrated by outplaying every other team in the competition, dropping only 1 game to Essendon in the mud, and it was real mud back then. We had our revenge in the grand final when Carlton defeated Essendon 5-5 to 3-8. In 1909, Jack Worrell left during an all too familiar internal dispute. It was also the year the famous CFC monogram was adopted as the official uniform, although, as you can see, it took a while for the old orange chamois shoulder patches to disappear. This is the earliest known film of a Carlton team in action, in the 1909 Grand Final. That Carlton made the Grand Final at all was miraculous, given the schisms of the year, but that we lost to South Melbourne by only 2 points was nothing short of tragic. The final score was Carlton 4-12, South 4-14. Carlton won 2 more flags in 1914 and 15, bringing the tally to 5 in the VFL. 1914 saw the completion of a hat-trick of Jubilee Premierships. Queen Victoria's in 1887, Australian football's in 1908, and now the Carlton Football Club's 50th year in 1914. Half the grand final side were in their first year. Billy Dick, Paddy O'Brien and Alf Board played terrific games in the victory over South by a kick, 6-9 to 4-15. During the terrible war year of 1915, football continued under depressing conditions. The season was nearly abandoned. Viv Valentine, grand final captain Alf Board, Vin Gardner and Andy McDonald had great years, and Carlton had a fine win over Collingwood in a very exciting game, 11-12 to 6-9. Carlton's run of success came to an end in 1915 for some years. But it was not long afterwards that Newton Chandler began his 66-year association with the club. He came down from Port Punker in 1911 and played with Brunswick until he joined Carlton in 1919. 150 senior games all told.
In 1921, we had the greatest team which Carlton's supposed to have had in its existence, 1921. That was the year of the great hailstorm at Melbourne when we were playing in the finals. And although we had a great chance at half-time, we were inside when the storm arrived. And after that, of course, it was very difficult and we were beaten by at 5 points. Horry Clover was an adept at any type of kicking, having brought the drop punt into football in Melbourne in 1920, brought it from Carisbrook. Playing at centre half forward from 60 yards out, he could kick goals from place kicks, torpedo punts, or drop kicks. And in one match at St Kilda in 1922, he kicked 13 goals from centre half forward. And that year he won the goal kicking of the Victorian Football League.
60 years of football were to pass before Bruce Doull first pulled on his boots for the Carlton seniors in 1969. And in 120 years of Carlton football, many great players have graced the turf. What a team this selection would make.
I would eat a football, fried, shoot or scramble, and I'd suck the lace. But you don't get the footballer today like that.
It goes towards Schimmelbusch, a difficult ball to mark. It's been tapped out nicely to Dool. Dool gets a hand pass
towards the wing position now. They're all up in the air. At the back is Dill. Good plays, get it out. He's still trying to get it out. And there's Dill coming through on the edge of the boundary line.
Ball tapped away from him, taken by Cable. And Bruce Dool will take an easy mark. The Iceman, Bruce Dool, takes the mark for Carlton. The cool as you like.
To Jezelenko, his old mate. He goes another hand pass to Dool. That was good.
Carlton had so many free kicks in the first quarter. 40-31, a 9-point lead in Hawthorn's favour, and Bruce Dool now from the half-back line. Relieve pressure for Carlton. Can go for a run right towards the centre half-back. Second bounce, Martello pursuing. But
hand pass to Austin. And Austin with a perfect pass finds Dool with a hand pass over the Burn now.
Flames against Martello, thumped down the ground. Burn streaming in, Jezelenko there too, and Bruce Dool beats them all.
Ball bounced beautifully for him. He gives it out now to the big bearded Dool. Getting very close to the line, as you see, but kept the ball in play. The hand pass was intercepted, but he got his own hand pass back.
Nicknamed the Flying Doormat.
By you?
Oh, by a lot of people. There's the kick by Dool. It's a good long kick. It could be a goal. By golly, what a beautiful kick by Dool.
Anyhow, the ball this time at Gordy's knocked it away, but Barassi roving beautifully to this, grabs the ball, kicks it over here towards, it's Jezelenko. Jezelenko swings around onto his left foot, he's hooked it! It's a glorious goal! Picked up by Stewart. Stewart with a left foot kick, puts it up here, almost to Jezelenko. He grabs it, puts it on his foot, right through the centre.
Another hand pass, this time to Gallagher, in trouble. Balks well, straight away to Jezelenko, and Jezelenko's kicked his fourth.
It's picked up here by John Gill. John Gill puts it onto his boot up towards... Oh, look at Jezelenko! What a ripper! As the ball is kicked back by Gary Crane, and Jezelenko has done it again! Picks the ball up and he shoots it right down towards the goal area. Oh, Kekovic fell over. Barassi had his name on it. Jezelenko goes in. Look at that will of the West. He followed that ball around there all the way. And he grabbed it and put it straight through. Paul, as Geelong grab it, now Collingwood grab it, little Terry Board. He puts it onto his foot to Jezelenko! And he pulled it down again. Here he is, the idol of the Carlton crowd, no doubt about this. As the ball is now being thrown in, Nichols and Farmer. Nobody gets the tap down. Sergi knocks it on to Jezelenko. Jezelenko lines it up, look at it. Right through the middle. The better of the duel by far against Reid. As the ball is kicked down now, up they go. Sarakoski can't take the mark. Coming across is Jezelenko. Jezelenko just hits the ball on, lines that up and right through the centre.
Position punch down again, coming toward Croswell. Croswell quickly on the left foot now. A chance for Jezelenko running at the own goal. Goes for the handball to Jones, and Jones 2 yards out. He's put it through.
He's struggling forward. It's Jezelenko with the ball now. Look at this fella move. Steps a shot at goal. It's good back.
Gill takes his kick at swinging towards centre half for the Carlton players. Come out. Oh, Jezelenko! No doubt.
Footy was hotly pressed. A chance for Jezelenko. Or Heath. Jezelenko throws and takes the mark.
It's Carlton doing as they like. Crane lining up the goals from 45 yards out. The kick, a poor one. It's fallen short. Jezelenko recovers first, picks up, steps over his shoulder.
Throw-in takes place with Kenny Beck in front of Nichols. Nichols gets the tap down, picked up by Blood. Oh, he's off. He was unloaded as he got it. His boot to the ball, picked up by Jezelenko, who steps back over his head. And another Carlton goal. Ball right down. It's a drop punt, a chance for Jezelenko. If he can climb, he'll have to climb. Yes, he does.
Back, hooks it in towards full forward. No mark. Down onto the ground. Jezelenko in there. Tackled solidly by Mackenzie. Still going. Turns round into an open goal. He's on an angle and puts it through.
I didn't think he was going to play it, Mike. He was spot on.
Okay, to the wing position on the member stand side. Oh, Jezelenko, you beauty! Okay, to the wing position on the member stand side. Oh, Jezelenko, you beauty! Why not? Nichols goes. Nichols taps down into an open goal.
Here's the short one into Kennedy on his own. Oh, but he's missed it. Nichols breaks right through the centre half-back position.
Tries a hand pass taken by Stewart. Stewart to Nichols. Nichols in at the big ones. This is going to be close. It's through. Bartlett now from the back pocket kicks to the wing position on the outer side. Up they all go. Nichols. I'll tell you what, he's starting to exert some influence. Nichols.
Here's the throw in. Big Nichols over towards Barassi. Couldn't get it. He's having a shot. No, his hand pass. It's a beauty to Gallagher. Quite his form. Nichols in front. Nichols going through there. Could be free kicked. He's following it up. Look at the strength of the man. Stone hand pass out. Flips it over. Nichols flips over to Robertson.
The effort to get that ball. Richmond, on the other hand, perhaps a little bit too defensive. Jezelenko's kick covering every bit of 65 yards. Nichols looking dangerous and has marked.
ground. It swings out towards the members' flank, however. A hand pass from Crane to Nichols. Nichols a long hand pass here towards Quirk. Quirk has time to steady on his left foot. He's put this through. Across here towards Quirk. Quirk now from a long way out places at the big ones. It's in the goal square. Goals.
Great players in 120 years of great Carlton teams. They've won 14 premierships for Carlton, as many as any other club in the competition. Between 1915 and 1938, however, there were 23 years of disappointment. The Blues were always thereabouts, but not quite good enough to take off a flag among the stiff competition. Those 23 years produced 3 seconds, 7 thirds and 6 fourth placings. Players like Horry Clover, Maury Beasy, Tommy Downs, Alex Duncan, Paddy O'Brien, Newton Chandler, Ray Brew, Mick Crisp and the inimitable Soapy Valance kept the team up during the 1920s and 30s. Soapy Valance joined Carlton from Bacchus Marsh in 1926.
I just walked in. Got an invitation from him, but I walked in and Newton was there. The one bloke said, "Did you bring your boots?" I said, "Yes, I brought my boots." And I went out. I played centre-half forward. And I kicked 7 goals and I was ready to go out again. And a committeeman said to me, he said, "You're not going out after half-time, Harry." He said, so they got us into the committee room, my father and myself, and wanted me to sign the Form 4. And I said, "No, I won't sign the Form 4 till if I'm on the final training list, I'll sign it." And I was on the final list and I signed it.
He went on to play 204 games and kick 722 goals for Carlton. Wisely, he was not cleared to Williamstown until 1939 and played for Carlton in the stirring victory over Collingwood in 1938. Former South star Brighton Diggins had been appointed playing coach and proved an astute tactician in the grand final, with Jack Hale, Jim Park, Jack Rout, Ken Baxter, Bob Chitty, Jim Francis, Rod McLean and Mickey Crisp playing extremely well. The war years weren't good for Carlton, and it wasn't until the war's end in 1945 that the Blues won their 7th premiership. Halfway through that season, they were 9th, and they won 8 of their last 9 games to grab 4th spot. They then needed to win their next 3, and did. The grand final was the infamous bloodbath. So Carlton had won 13 of their last 14, and a flag from 4th spot, the first time that had been achieved. Princes Park was like a sardine can in 1945 when 62,986 packed in to the grand final, the MCG still being under wartime control. 9 players were reported in what was the roughest game anyone could remember. Coach Percy Bentley had, however, a team which gave as good as it got and could play football as well. Bob Chitty, Vin Brown, Ken Baxter, Arthur Sanger, Clinton Wines, Rod McLean and Bert Deacon all played fine games, as did Ken Hands, 18 at the time, mostly from memory.
In 1945, it was an unusual year for Carlton. I think after the first 4 games, they were on the bottom of the list, having been defeated by Essendon by 100 points. Now, that should bring a memory back to 1985. But as that year developed, there were a lot of players that came back from overseas service, from Army service. There was Ken Baxter, Bert Deacon, Clinton Wines, who played brilliantly in the centre. And then Carlton went on to win a number of games until we met Essendon again here on the Carlton ground. And I remember so very well, we were 3 goals in front with less than 2 minutes to go, or 2 goals, 3 in front actually, and Essendon kicked 3 goals in about 2 minutes to win the game by 3 points. And I remember so well, on the Tuesday night. In those days we only trained Tuesday and Thursday, that we walked out on the ground, and Perce Bentley addressed the players before training, and he said, well, wouldn't that bugger it? And Freddie Fitzgibbon said, well, we can still make it. And it just seemed to revive all the players and give them fresh confidence. And as we know, we went on to win 13 out of 14 games to finally beat South Melbourne in the grand final. In the game in 45, in the parts that I remember about it, we were crossing over at quarter time, and Jack Williams of South Melbourne had made some comment to the umpire that Carlton should have been 6 goals in front, as we had a fairly strong breeze in that first quarter, but we didn't make much headway. And then in the second quarter was when all the problems erupted. I was moving around quite a lot at centre half forward and under instruction, and Herbie Matthews was going crook at Jack Williams because he wasn't minding me, and I'd moved off to the flank and taken a mark, and somebody in the Carlton side kicked a goal. It went back to the centre, and I remember quite clearly Rodden McLean got the ball, hooked it with his left foot. Jack Williams had moved up towards the centre of the ground, and I had dropped back, took a mark, ran on, kicked a goal. Now, I can't describe any more of that game for you until we get to the end.
Carlton ran out, winning the fights and the game, 15-13 to South's 10-15. Carlton missed the 4 in 1946, but finished on top of the ladder in 47. The appointment of first year for Carlton, Western Australian Ern Hentbury as captain, was initially controversial, but eventually very successful. He made all the difference in the last desperate minutes of the grand final and played a terrific game, as did Fred Davies, Jack Bennett, Chuka Howell, Ken Baxter, Ken Hands, Ollie Grieve and Fred Stafford, who kicked the goal that gave us a 1-point victory.
And in 1947, Carlton again were well to the fore and finished on top of the list, and finally defeated Essendon in the grand final by 1 point. That again was a memorable game because Fred Stafford had kicked a goal just, well, minutes really before the final siren. The ball went back to the centre of the ground, and Dick Reynolds, the Essendon captain coach, had possession of the ball just as the final siren rang, and Carlton won by the 1 solitary point. We had 19 players that day. Bill Brittingham, the Essendon full forward, he must have kicked about 1 goal 8, I think. So after that, Bill was moved to full back and became a very good player.
The icing on the Premiership cake was Bert Deacon's winning of the 1947 Brownlow medal. ...1948 was disappointing for Carlton. We finished 6th, but we were in the grand final in 1949, again under Perce Bentley's coaching. Unfortunately, we ran into Essendon and John Coleman and suffered a terrible defeat. Carlton didn't appear in a grand final again until 1962 under Ken Hands' coaching. The first semi that year was against the giants of the era, Melbourne, and the Blues scraped home by 2 points. This is some action from that game. We drew the preliminary final against Geelong, won the replay by 5 points, but then ran out of pup in the grand final against Essendon, and again John Coleman, this time as coach. Between 1947 and 62, some great players began careers that would pay off later. John James won the Brownlow in 1961. And Gordon Collis in 1964. None of this was good enough, on or off the field. In 1965, things began to change.
My involvement, real involvement in the Carlton Football Club, I guess, started at a game versus St Kilda in 1964. Carlton were 10th on the ladder, the lowest in the club's history, playing atrociously. And at the end of the game, I was sitting with 2 fellows who were later committeemen, Gordon Newton and Eddie Fakery, and a remark was made, we can't let this go any further. We must do something about it. From that grew the first real election, I guess, in football history.
Harris was elected president in early December 1964, and before Christmas, Ron Barassi was coach of Carlton. Those two moves essentially created the business of modern football, a game which has brought Carlton unparalleled success. Many soon-to-be great players, Alex Jesaulenko, Wes Lofts, Percy Jones, Adrian Gallagher, Brian Quirk, Gary Crane, Sid Jackson, Robert Walls, David Mackay, Ted Hopkins, Kevin Hall, Bruce Doull, Ian Collins, Brent Croswell, John Gould, Barry Gill, Ian Robertson, all of whom helped lead the club back into the finals in 1967, and the first flag in 21 years in 1968. Joined the already great, such as Turkey Tom Carroll, Serge Silvani and John Nichols in the 1960s.
I think during those eras, 65, 6, 7, 8, certainly was an exciting time for me, having been with the club for 7 or 8 years and then seeing good players recruited, a different style of game being played, and some magnificent players coming into the club under the coaching of Ron Barassi.
Of course, come to mind about a grand final, but two stick out in my mind. One was a kick gained by Brian Kekovich, who was a left footer, and from about 30 yards out, 25 yards out, at not too great an angle, went for a banana kick, which is not a kick popular in those days, becoming more so now, but a kick that didn't need to be used at that angle and that length in that situation. I can remember, I couldn't believe a guy would be so casual about the sort of kick he used in a grand final. Admittedly, at that stage, he was playing pretty well and we were playing pretty well, but it seemed to me to be not the sort of mental approach to take to any sort of disposal. And I couldn't have been madder with a guy in my whole life. And that's obviously so because it's stuck in my mind all of these years. It was a grand final win which was fantastic for Carlton. It was a win which we couldn't claim was great for any other reason other than it was a win, because we did struggle through the game. I thought we were clearly the better side, not with much of an edge, but a definite edge, even though Essendon could have won the match. And that second thing that comes to mind quickly about the 68 grand final was to do with Wes Lofts and their full forward Geoffrey Blethen, who was quite a high flyer, and he took this mark, or was going to fly for the mark down in front of goals, I reckon about 20 yards out, sort of dead in front. And Wes he was quite handy with his arms and upper parts of his body in body positioning, and I think he might have given a bit of a shove, and Essendon supporters to this day, of course, scream it should have been a free kick. Well, perhaps it may have been, but I don't think it's a sort of free kick given in a grand final anyway. It would have been slightly technical if it had been given, and he may not have kicked the goal anyway. And my conscience is completely clear on the subject, because I really did feel we were the better side on that day. It was a scruffy win, but it was a fantastic win, and come back here to the social club and meet people who had waited so long. It was a great night, naturally. It was my first ever coaching success as far as the Premiership is concerned.
In 1969, Carlton were runners-up to Richmond, but in 1970 hit the winning list again, in arguably the greatest grand final of all time. Collingwood were ahead by 44 points at half-time, and all but the most die-hard supporters had given up, but not the team, and not Ron Barassi.
Even to this day, 15 years later, I'm asked a lot of questions about the 70 grand final. What happened at half-time, what was said at half-time, what were our thoughts at half-time. Well, it was a very interesting half-time interval, I must admit. Probably looking back, it was just terrific how it all happened. One of the things that should be remembered, for the sake of accuracy, that during the second quarter, Carlton were getting far more a share of the ball, of the action, than in the first quarter when we were just being thrashed. So, whilst the guys went in a long way down, they wouldn't have been completely down in their spirits because, as I said, we were getting a share of the ball. One of the questions I had asked of our statisticians at half-time, immediately entering the room almost, how many handballs we'd had, because we hadn't had a running game going, and whilst the running game in those days wasn't anywhere near what it is today, it was still an important part of the Carlton thing under my coaching. And the answer came 13. So I asked the players, I can remember pointing to players as they sat on the bench in the visitors' room at the MCG, have a guess how many handballs we've had. And Kevin Hall, I think, may have said whatever. I don't even remember what figures they mentioned, but I can remember replying, a lousy, stinking, rotten 13. And we formulated a plan of getting back to some handball, using it in a special way for one special reason, because Collingwood were holding us up with their high mark, and they had Jenkins and Dunn and Thompson, maybe others, really just taking marks, and they were driving us crazy because we weren't a fantastically high marking side. So one of our things was to try and have a man drifting past forward of the man on the mark when we had a set kick, and handballing to that man, and then he would have a run and he would then kick over the heads of those Collingwood tall players. That was one way in which we had to use handball. Well, a lot of players get a lot of credit from the 70 grand final, but I can't think of one poor player we had. I think every player rose to magnificent heights, and even one of the main heroes, so to speak, in the public's mind, Teddy Hopkins, how he came onto the field in the second half was interesting in a way. I want to have him, or Bert Thornley, our rover, off the field after half-time, but in those days of no interchange, the selectors convinced me that was a bit dangerous, a bit risky, and that was true. But as the players are milling around just to go out to start the second half off, I really had this very strong feeling, a hunch, so to speak, that we had to make this change. And I said, look, it's no good. Bert's got to come off or stay off and send on Teddy. Well, Teddy went berserk in the second half and kicked goals, and it was just fantastic. There are other magic moments in the game too. One, Kevin Hall, when he came through to intercept a pass towards McKenna. McKenna just hesitated that fraction, and Hall, who was very fast, in fact, the reason why he was chosen to play on McKenna was the fact of his pace, and he would have a hope because of that pace at the end of a long lead to be with the McKenna, because a full forward, if he says start in the race, he's always going to lead initially because he's the one that says go. Jesselinko's mark, I mean, that was just a magic mark, and of course it's been recorded for posterity, and well, it should be. His goal, long goal that bounced through, it gave us a 10-point victory. If it had been a point, I don't think it would have mattered that it was a point. We still would have won. I'll tell you why I still feel that way, because the feeling at three-quarter time was a magic feeling, one that just couldn't, it was unstoppable feeling pervading the players. And I said something at three-quarter time which required, perhaps not a question, but it wasn't a question perhaps, but I said something that provoked a response from the players, and from that response I just knew we wouldn't be beaten.
Barassi had remembered a comment made about Carlton's final quarter fade-out in the 1969 grand final, that rather than berating his players for mistakes at three-quarter time, he should have encouraged them for a great third-quarter effort. Win or lose, he should have said, "I'm proud of you." Barassi had remembered the comment and saved it for an important game. Here it was, the grand final 1 year later.
And it's just amazing to think that to the very day, exactly 1 year later, it'd be almost to the minute, the same set of circumstances come about, because, you know, the crowd had stood almost as one, I guess not Collingwood supporters, and cheered a team's effort in that third quarter. And it came to me to use this speech, and as soon as I said the words, "win or lose, I'm so proud of you," they said, "Lose? What are you talking about?" And they were just saying it with such feeling and such an immediate response. I just knew we wouldn't lose, even though I think 10 minutes into the quarter we'd gotten to be 20 points down from memory. 20 points down the grand final in those days, the 10-minute mark. Oh, it's still a big loss, but the boys came through and went from -20 to +10, so the things they did that day deserve to go down in football history.
So Carlton came from the depths near defeat to beat Collingwood by 10 points, 17-9 to 14-17. 1971 was a big disappointment after playing in 3 grand finals in a row. Carlton finished 5th, but 1972 more than made up for it. As an example of the new 70s style of attacking football, it was a treat. And of course, once the game started, a new playing coach, John Nichols' master plan swung into operation. The Blues could not be beaten.
Richmond had defeated us comfortably on several occasions, mainly with us playing a certain style of game to counteract their attacking play. And we found that for the majority of the game, certainly up to half-time or three-quarter time, we could do it successfully, but then in the last quarter their attacking play and long kicking game still had them the victors over us. And we planned on doing 2 things, and that was to basically put our best players in the forward line against Richmond in the grand final, to toss away all of our defensive tactics we had used throughout the games previously. To defeat Richmond, we had to kick a large score, certainly in the over 20 goals, to have a chance. And because of that reason, we abandoned all of our defensive tactics we had been using previously. We picked our best forward line, which certainly involved Robert Walls, Jesselenko, Sid Jackson, Trevor Keogh, myself in the forward pocket. Instead of starting in the first ruck, which Peter Jones did, I started in the forward line, and as history has proved, that certainly I think Jesselenko kicked 7 goals, Walls kicked 6, I kicked 6, Jackson kicked just about as many, and we managed to kick 25, 26 goals, which was enough to win the game. But I'm sure that the tactic of picking our best side in the forward line, not so much going with the back line and just attacking all day, which was a different style of football at that stage in the 60s that gave us the Premiership in 1972.
Carlton had won a battle of wits in the grand final after playing a draw against Richmond in the second semi and being absolutely thrashed in the replay. They'd kicked a mammoth grand final score, 28-9 to Richmond's 22-18, a score that would have won any grand final except this one. It was John Nichols' triumph and Alex Jesselenko's, Robert Walls, Sid Jackson's, Jeff Southby's and 15 others. The 70s then turned sour after those wonderful first few years. Carlton were knocked off in more ways than one in 1973 by Richmond, and then endured 4 lean years in finals, despite often seeming to be the best side in the comp during the year. But players had been arriving at Princes Park to join Alex Jesselenko and veterans Dool, Jones, Mackay and Keogh by the time Jesselenko was finally appointed coach in 1978. Jeff Southby and Rod Austin came in 1971, Rod Ashman in 73, Mark McClure, Mike Fitzpatrick and James Buckley over the next 3 seasons, Wayne Harms in 1977, Peter McConville in 78, Alex Marcoux and Wayne Johnston in 1979. Carlton finished on top of the ladder under Jezza in 1979, only losing 3 games and easily accounting for North in the second semi. We then had to face a strangely confident and charged up Collingwood in the grand final.
And in 79 I was fortunate enough to secure my place in the side, and it was a really excellent side. By accident, the people from Bendigo and other areas that Carlton drew upon had managed to put together a very small side, a mosquito fleet. And the side was, I guess, very fast and very skilled. Very few big players except down the centre, and nevertheless those players were, I guess you'd say, experienced and able to hold a side together. So we had this tremendous mix of very young, fast, skilled, small players, and I guess larger, more experienced senior players who played in the goal-to-goal line or in the ruck. And it was a side that really moved the ball around very quickly, and it revolutionised football, which had, up until, I guess, the 78 era stage, been much more about body strength than about speed. And the Carlton side of 1979 was extraordinarily successful. I think in the qualifying games we only lost 2 matches. And when it came to the final round in 1979, we met Collingwood in the second semi-final and won, and then we met them in the grand final. It was one of those days that Tommy Hafey had been praying for, the Collingwood coach, a very, very wet day. And as expected, Collingwood started very well in those conditions. They went to a lead of some 5 goals, virtually into time on in the second quarter. We hadn't scored a goal, we had 7 points on the board. And then Wayne Harms and a couple of other players really cut loose for the Carlton side. Alex Marcoux, the smaller players, really started to pick the ball up and whisk it around. And we went in just, I think, a point down at half-time after a 5-minute blitz on the Collingwood goal.
Armstrong in about 9 miles. Sees Klomp. On to Buckley, through the centre, Carlton. Ireland, the knock on. Magro left it behind momentarily. Rayburn, the former Carlton player, now playing for Collingwood. A ton of time to decide what to do. Worthington. Oh, great smother. Magro, as Marcoux came in. McClure fires and misses badly, and it's out on the full. No, it's not. It's going to be a throw-in. Must have just hit the line on the far side of the behind post. Peter Moore coming down, no ruckman in position. Blaine McClure is coming in now. Moore from the side. Out to Buckley, though. Buckley. High tackle. Buckley's free kick, 25 metres out. Buckley fires. He seems happy with it. It's a goal to Carlton.
After half-time, we came out and really got stuck into the Collingwood side and broke away to a lead of over 20 points. Players like Klomp and Perce Jones, Kenny Sheldon, Mark McClure really working very hard. And looked as though going into three-quarter time, we'd probably be a good chance to win fairly comfortably. In the last quarter, the Woods came back very, very hard.
Quickly on, Collingwood running hot now. Magro switched to the centre for the last quarter. In the direction of Davis, but Jezelenko over the top to spoil and punch the ball to safety out of bounds.
Jez has hurt himself, he's hurt his ankle, and what a blow for Carlton. At the 15-minute mark of the last quarter, the trainer's coming from everywhere to Jezelenko. Carlton a man short for the moment.
And Tommy Hafey really had a very strong side that was prepared to fight back. It got down to the last few minutes and Wayne Harms, chasing a ball on the half-forward flank for Carlton, dived full length, picked it up virtually on the boundary line with a punch, and he punched the ball right into the goal square about 30 metres away where Ken Sheldon was waiting. He picked the ball up and just put it through for 6 points, which turned out to be the goal that sealed the match.
Carlton by 5 points. Look at Perce. Carlton 11-16-82. Collingwood 11-11-77.
Tragedy that Jezelenko's not there to be in it. We might see him come out of the players' race, I wonder. Carlton's remarkable run of success continued in 1981, after the hiccup of 1980 when we finished 4th under Percy Jones' coaching. David Parkin turned a very good team into one that was very difficult indeed to beat. New players Ken Hunter, Peter Bosustow, David Glascott, Des English and Val Perovic were immediate successes.
Taken away from Bright beautifully by Hunter. A long kick. Bruce Nankervis, a long kick up there. Hunter, what a great mark.
Hunter, one of the best on the ground. Look at that for a mark.
What a magnificent mark. Like it goes. Oh, look at that Hunter. What a mark. That's 3's taken distance. Oh, there's a beautiful mark there to Hunter.
Haven't been into attack yet this quarter. Wells has kicked sailing goalwards into... Oh, look at Bosustow, mark of the year.
What a beauty.
What a great mark that was. And very close to mark of the year. He's soared above the pack. Oh, goodness me.
Blake goes for the punch. It hits the deck. Bosustow again. This could be a goal coming up. He's put it through for a goal.
In 1981, right from the start of the season, it was obvious we had probably the best side. Collingwood were our only major rival. We had David Parkin coaching, and we still had that mosquito fleet strength that we'd had from 1978-79. We led the competition all year and finished top, won the second semi-final, and played Collingwood in the grand final. Once again it was wet, and once again at half-time, just as in 79, the scores were pretty much even.
A long, long way. McClure the target, pick and front position. McClure, yes! Supermark. Pardon the pun.
We'd started very well, but Collingwood had pegged us back a bit in the second quarter, and they came out after after half-time and threw everything at us. It looked as though going into time on of the third quarter, we were going to be beaten. They were at about 29 points up, and we really didn't look as though we had much more to offer. Then going into time on, Alex Marcoux got a ball away from the centre. Jimmy Buckley kicked a goal. He came back to the centre. We pushed it down forward again, and Rod Ashman converted from the boundary line.
From Sheldon up the ground. Sheldon's got time as well. Low pass to full forward. Johnston. Almost.
And we went in to three-quarter time, still behind, but just with a chance. At that three-quarter time break, David Parkin convinced a pretty despondent Carlton side that Collingwood were in fact starting to flag. Now, I know personally I went into that huddle thinking that we were gone, and came out looking at the last quarter as if we might be a chance to win. It was one of the best three-quarter time speeches I heard from any coach, particularly from someone like David, who was generally very pessimistic. And on that day, for the first time in the whole year that I'd known him as coach, he was actually very, very optimistic about our chances in the game. We came out in the last quarter and absolutely blitzed Collingwood and ran out very easy winners at the end of the match. It was a notable match also for Swan Mackay's last game. He kicked a goal a few minutes before the siren, his last goal in league football in a Premiership side.
Arms nicely. Off the kick, up towards Marcoux. And Carlton now showing their wares. Short one into Mackay. Good play. If only time wasting, but they're working the ball forward. Peter Moore dropping back.
He's having a shot and he can kick the ball a long way.
A long way. This will be the sealer if he gets it. And it is the sealer. Mackay's second goal. That's it. Carlton has won the 1981 Grand Final. 13 premierships in the club's history. The final score, Carlton 12-20-92 have defeated Collingwood by 20 points, 10-12-72.
We struggled all year in 82, just managed to get into the top three, lost the second semi-final against Richmond, played a gruelling game against Hawthorn in the prelim, and then got to Richmond in the grand final. Once again a wet day against a side which we knew would be very, very strong, very tough, very physically aggressive.
Rawlings, an early free kick is going Carlton's way to Buckley, defensive side of centre. A long spearing kick by Buckley up towards Ditchburn. Off hands, a chance for Johnson. McClure, open goal, across the wicket. Oh, Johnson! Oh, has he kicked it? He has! A goal after 15 seconds of play in the grand final.
They're into attack again. Fitzpatrick boots them forward. One out. Ditchburn versus Martello. Martello's a bit clumsy at ground level, and he's well tackled. Harms, open goal. Point. Goal! Carlton's second goal. They've kicked two in the space of 80 seconds. And the Blues have got a flying start in the wet in the 82 grand final. Oh, almost put Perovic under the hammer, thought better of it. Kicks towards Fitzpatrick up on the centre line. He and Buckley hold it into each other's hands, and it's Fitzpatrick's ball and a 15-metre penalty. So the umpire's cracking the whip as the sun comes out and the rain stops. Long one towards McClure, who's got two to beat. On the ground, in goes Big Lee. Oh, didn't go for the ball, dipped the shoulder and gave away a free kick to Malin, who let him know all about it too. Ditchburn and McClure are lurking in the teeth of goal. Wobbly old punt, not a good one for the forwards to mark. Well played by Lee. Fitzpatrick, is it a mark? Play on. No, it is a mark. Ashman, I didn't know whether it was 10 metres. Ashman is only 15 metres out directly in front
And a chance now to really give Carlton a tremendous start. He's normally very accurate around goal. This kick's no exception. Carlton 3 straight. Richmond yet to score, and the Blues are flying.
Ashman kicks his 44th goal for the season.
We started extraordinarily well. We kicked 4 goals in the first 4 or 5 minutes. And from there it was an excellent match. Struggled all day. In the end, they got within a goal of us in the last quarter. And I think the one that sealed it was Mark McClure fought very, very hard, punched the ball away from Emmett Dunn. The ball just rolled to Alex Marcoux, who then swooped on it and kicked a goal from about 40 metres out near the boundary. That was the end of the game.
Ever there was a vital kick that will not be forgotten.
It was a terrific match for us because a lot of people were saying that we could beat a Collingwood, but we couldn't beat a side like Richmond in a grand final mood. And that was the one that I think for all those that had played in those Premiership years that capped it off.
It was only the second time in over 20 years that a team had won consecutive flags. The score, Carlton 14-19-103, Richmond 12-13-85. By the standard of Carlton's mighty tradition, the last 3 years have been very disappointing. But one thing's for certain, the disappointment won't last for long. The new tradition is growing already.
Over the last 3 years we've been in the 5 and we haven't been very successful in winning another flag. I think we're heading into a new era for the Carlton Football Club. 1985 brought about the identification of a number of future champions. These include Stephen Silvani, who was courageous in defence, Tom Alvin, who was turning into a champion footballer at a very early age, Paul Meldrum, who came of age, Peter Rode, Peter Dean, and of course probably the greatest success story of the year was the development of Justin Madden. Very unlucky not to win the Brownlow medal, but an outstanding performance, and there are men round here saying that he will be another John Nichols. We've selected, the committee has, a new coach. We think Robbie Walls, who was a champion footballer in many of those Premiership teams, will come back to Carlton and give us a new lease of life. Add to that 4 champions coming from interstate, in John Dorotich from Western Australia, Stephen Kernahan, you might remember, kicked 10 goals against Bruce Dool in an interstate match, Peter Motley and Craig Bradley. I believe we're starting on the beginning of a new era to keep Carlton the most fantastic and the greatest club in the VFL.
That's it. That's 121 years of the Carlton Football Club. The Blues have finished on top 20 times since football began. Success through all kinds of changes both inside and outside the club. And success brought about by hundreds of players and officials of one of the greatest and oldest sporting clubs in the world. What can we say except that may a successful Carlton remain one constant in a football world always on the move.
Up towards McClure, Basasto at the back! Away he goes! Over the top to Hunter, lines them up, goal! What great play from Basasto! Hunter made a kick down. We're the only team on Carlton knows. Winning home, she chances Bruce Dool. They like to send up, and she loves to kick our end up, and she loves, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old Star Blue. That ball wasn't played. I thought it might have been a mark. Ashman, go! Oh, this could be trouble. Poor mobility here from Ashman. Across to McClure. Tons of time to steer. Across towards Basasto. Go!
Basasto kicks it over the roof. There's never any half measures about the amazing Mr. Basasto.
We are the Navy Blues. We are the old dark Navy Blues. We're the team that never lets you down. We're the only team old Carlton knows. With all the champions, they like like to send up will keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blues.
Seems like those dreams are coming true. We're all about to get our due. Looks like wedding's back in style.